They're on the beach building a 10-figure business with sandals and flip-flops on. I'm just like, what the
You haven't
that?
figured out how to make your
I don't
seven
want to
figures
do
off
that.
of flip-flops.
I don't want to do that. So it does not appeal to me. Because for me, sitting on a beach, drinking some drink, and my team is in the grind doing it, it will never appeal to me.
So, Waleed is not going to say it, but I'm going to say it. One of the reasons both of us have been so tired lately is because we've been putting out fires like we're Fire Marshal Bill. Like, bring a hose, bring the truck, open up the water fountain. Not the water fountain. What do you call it? The fire hydrant. And put it on full blast. It's been that many fires. And so we had some inclement weather to start.
It wasn't no real weather. I don't know what's up with like this real bad weather stuff here going on in New York. Now, Texas, that's a whole nother story. And like sympathy, hearts go out. Hope everybody is like recovering well. But in New York, we had like one time 6 inches. Another time it was like 3-4 inches. That's not a lot of snow. Okay. Let's be absolutely clear. I don't know what's going on this day and age. We have become so soft. And I'm probably going to sound like when my parents, their grandparents, and everybody says, and they be like, when I was your age and I went to school, we would walk to school. But I'm going to be real. Like, I don't care what anybody says. And they're like, yeah, my parents said. We would go to school and it'd be like, first of all, New York City public schools did not close down unless it was like a foot of, like they hardly ever closed when we were in public school. Mm-hmm. Like right now, like the wind blows too hard and like 3 flakes of snowfall. News breaking alert. New York City schools will be closed due to weather, inclement weather and weather storms.
And the mass transit is going to stop.
And we're shutting down mass transit. I do not understand how we have more technology now and more advancements and we close stuff or we can't deal with something. And we're not talking about like feet of snow. We're talking about inches. School would close when we were younger. It would be if I remember walking and the snow would like come up to like my calf and I'd be like, damn, it's deep. And then they'd be like, okay, school's closed. And I'll be like, we'd all be like, yay. And when you went outside, it was a lot of snow outside. Like I remember one time it was so much snow, we couldn't even go out the door on the first floor. We had to go up to the upstairs and walk down the stairs. And it was snow everywhere. And it was a couple feet of snow outside. This 3 inches, 4 inches, 6 inches, I don't get it. But I'm telling you, it's something else behind this. And that's a whole nother discussion politically and monetary. Like, how do you shut down mass transportation for 3, 4, 6 inches of snow? You're telling me we have more technology and more advancements and the technology can't deal with several inches of snow? I'm befuddled by that. We like, people are like, they're hyperlooping cars that drive themselves and all kind of technology that's out there now. We have meat that's made from plants, and you telling me we can't
not meat.
Whatever.
It's plants that
plant-based meat or whatever. No, all these advances in technology, like with health and medicine. We made a vaccine for COVID in whatever amount of time, and you tell me we can't deal with snow? Snow? But anyway, yeah.
So that just made us start talking about not snow, but emergencies, how people perceive emergencies and how people manage emergencies. And I was recently scrolling through social media. I saw
it's cold outside. I can't go to work.
I saw a post from Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx. And it says, making good decisions comes from experience. Experience comes from making bad decisions. And one of the ways that we as entrepreneurs, as business owners, practice making decisions is when we face emergency situations.
Just make more decisions. The more decisions you make. But there's also what I believe, I don't know if there's any scientific data on it. I'm just speaking for myself. Decision fatigue. Like after a while, after you make so many decisions, the more you have to make, the longer that the higher number of decisions you make, I truly believe your best, whatever, I don't know what to call this, but your best decision-making percentage goes down. So if I had to make 100 decisions today, right? Mm-hmm. And then like, let's say towards round 70, I'll just be like, Yeah, okay, yeah, do that. Like the percentage goes down. I truly believe that, just from experience. I don't know if there's any scientific data on that.
I would disagree. I would say
Hence why I wear the same thing every day. Because I don't have to decide what I got to put on in the morning.
I would dare say that most people would prefer not to have to make decisions and not to have to be accountable for making decisions. And that's what it oftentimes distinguishes leaders from non-leaders, business owners from business employees, entrepreneurs from entrepreneurs, is making decisions, making a lot of decisions. It's like,
well, that's two different things though, because you're saying people who want to make a decision versus people who don't want to make decisions, which I agree with what you're saying. But I'm just, when I say the decision fatigue thing, it's someone who wants to make decisions, but I'm saying the quality of my decisions changes over time if I'm doing too many. So if I can eliminate some things that somebody else could make a decision on, or I don't really need to think about, I can like almost automate it. Then my decision, the decisions that I'm still making, I will make better decisions because I'm making less of them. I can focus more on them if you follow me.
Right, but
you're talking about someone who doesn't want to make decisions.
There's a difference between punting a decision and, what do you call it? If I ask you to do it instead, delegating. Yes, there's a difference
punting
between
and punting. I don't know. It depends how you use punting, but it could be the same.
Punting and delegating, right? Because even if you delegate the decision, you make a decision to do that.
But if you build a system where something, when that comes up, that it automatically gets delegated to that individual or that team, then you don't even have to think about it anymore. And then when you meet with that team, they get the report and be like, oh yeah, this happened. And be like, yep. That's why that shit gets delegated to this team, so I don't have to deal with that.
So let's come back to that. So again, we had some inclement weather. We started some new sites. We had some challenges with respect to client communication. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And so we've had a lot of instances over the past 2 weeks where we had to make a lot more decisions because of the situations we found ourselves in. And I'm just going to put this on you all really quickly. The definition of an emergency.
Yeah, we could talk about emergencies, boy, because I get those phone calls when people don't go to work. I got an emergency. What's the difference between an emergency and a problem? Because I hear emergency used so routinely. And what I think of an emergency is probably not what the average person thinks of an emergency. So what's Webster say an emergency?
So Merriam-Webster defines emergency as the following: an unforeseen combination of circumstances or the resulting state that calls for immediate action or an urgent need for assistance or relief. The use of the word emergency comes from the Latin emergens, which means to rise out or rise up. It's basically emerge, plunge, and see. So to come up out of something. So when people say to you, I have an emergency, but they're not going to take immediate action, it's not really an emergency because they're really happy staying the way they are until later.
They want to call it emergency because it sounds more pressing, or they think it sounds better to tell me I can't come to work because it's an emergency. And then when they tell me why, they're like, oh, because somebody's got to let the plumber in the house to like put a piece of tape around it so it blends in with the white color of the wall, so because the pipe is black and then we want the pipe to be white. I'm like, that's not an emergency. Or someone calls me in the middle of the night and be like, oh, I think I need to leave because somebody said
my smoke alarm is going off.
They hear the smoke detector going off. I'm like, bro, if you're like 40 minutes away from your house and you get off work, I don't know, in an hour, you leaving work right now because your neighbor called you and say they hear the smoke detector going off. They shouldn't be calling you. They should be calling 911 or someone who could go in there and check. Because otherwise, it ain't an emergency. Right? Or, well, I can say a whole bunch of other things, but I'll leave it alone.
So let's park emergency and think about what a problem is. A problem is defined as a question raised for inquiry, consideration, or solution, an intricate, unsettled question, or a source of perplexity, distress, or vexation. Now, many cases where people talk about they have emergencies, it might really be a problem. The etymology of the word problem, you see it used starting in mid-15th century. It means a difficulty. So something that's not necessarily easy, which is very different from An emergency.
Right. Emergency is like I'm in the house and my child just like passed out and I'm going with them to the hospital. That's an emergency. When someone calls and be like, oh, yeah, I just got a call and they said the dog is sick at home and my kids and my husband are taking them to the vet. I need to leave work right now to go meet them at the vet. Huh? Your kids and your husband is already taking the dog to the vet, so you need to stop work right now to go meet them at the vet? Like, don't get me wrong. And I'm a pet person. I love dogs. But let's be clear. If Jess called me and be like, the dog is sick, I'm taking the dog to the vet. Do you think for a minute I'm going to leave work, stop what I'm doing in the business and be like, oh, I'm coming to the vet right now? Probably not. But will I go to the vet later on when I have some time or there's a break in my schedule? Absolutely. Done it before. It's happened. Right? But I'm just going to, oh, it's emergency, guys. We got to stop commerce and chill. It's emergency. I got to go. My goldfish is floating at the top of the tank. See you guys later. Bye. Like, no, you can't do that.
Come back. So you talked about what emergency isn't based on what we've heard from some of our team members. Help the people in Commerce and Chill Land understand what kind of things do you consider an emergency in business?
Well, I'm probably a little different when it comes to that. And I think there are a lot of things that are important and problems you need to deal with in business, like a client complaint or like a team member is having trouble. And to me, I have a level of like a different degrees of what something is, where it's a problem and then it turns into an emergency. And for me, an emergency in business is something that just needs to be addressed right away. So there's no category or no classification to say, if this thing happens, it's an emergency. If this thing happens, it's a problem. They're all problems. It just means that some problems need to be solved faster than others. It's triage. It's like the hospital. You ever watch those movies and like it's a mass catastrophe and they start categorizing people by color and basically like this color gets treatment and this color, if they mark you red, they just push you on the side. They're like, they're going to die. We can't do nothing about that. Like we got to focus on the other ones. So to me, it's everything that comes up that's a problem, that's out of the ordinary, it needs to be addressed, but some things need to be addressed faster or in different ways than others. So I get a client who complains and says, hey, you guys didn't use Downy in my laundry like you were supposed to. And then there's another comes in our help desk software, another message comes in and says, hey, I'm missing a sock. The sock takes priority over the Downy. They're both important. They both need to be addressed, but that's a little different. Or I get another message and says, hey, one of the driver's cars just broke down in the middle of his route. That's at the top of the list because now somebody's got to go out there and meet that driver. We got to figure out something so he can get those orders can still get delivered to the clients. So somebody might consider that emergency, but I'm just like, it's just a more important problem for me to solve. And there's no need for me to wig out. Because what's the worst case scenario? You can't deliver them. We contact the clients. We reschedule it. We give them a credit or some kind of, something to say we apologize for it. Whether it's a gift or credit, we give them something to make up for the inconvenience. And then we move on. But to say, oh my God, it's an emergency, shut the store down. Everybody go get in an Uber, get in your cars and drive and go meet this driver so we could get these orders delivered. If you're handling things like that, you're probably not going to be a good decision maker because you're putting everything else on pause to take care of this one thing. And life and business kind of doesn't work that way. Like things are going to happen in our lives and in business, and you can't just hit the pause button on everything else.
So give the people 2 tips on how you can manage an emergency all the while keeping the rest of the business operating normally.
Well, it's going to depend on a couple of things. One, the size of your business and how many people you have on your team. So if you have more people on your team, then you can have those team members get involved. And we use the D word here. We can delegate. Listen, this is the emergency. So we'll use the driver breaking down scenario again. I can have one person say, hey, you call whatever your fleet service company is or AAA or whoever, you call so-and-so they can get out there to tow the vehicle. So-and-so, you jump in the van and go meet them where they are and go pick up everything that's in that van and finish the rest of their route. Or You go there, take them the van, help them load it into it, let them take that van and finish their deliveries, and you sit there with that van until the fleet service gets there, or whoever, AAA, the tow truck, or whatever. Change a tire, jump it, break it up. So it's not an emergency, or it's not a huge problem for everybody. For one person, everybody takes a piece of it and it's bite-sized. Like, oh, I can handle these one or two things, and then it's done really fast. If you operate by yourself, then it's a different story. You got to look at what is the issue, what's the emergency problem, whatever term we want to use, and what's the most effective way for me to get it done effectively and quickly as possible so I can get back to whatever else I need to do. It's not going to stop my normal routine, but for so long, and then get back in the game. And this is probably something you probably need a skill to have, or something you need to put in your tool chest that I don't advise for everyone, but sometimes you just got to ignore stuff. Like, you got to look at it like there are some times when you got to let the fires just burn, because there's things you need to focus on to get done and then go back. So you have to be able to judge, is this like a spark? Is this right? Is it an amber? Is this like just some kind of fireplace fire? Or is this a freaking forest fire? Like, or, it's just like smoke coming out of these wires. Like, somebody better turn this off real soon. Like, the extension cord is getting hot when you got the heater running. Like, you got to figure that out. And sometimes you just got to let that go for a minute and focus and finish what you're doing, and then go and take care of that. But those are, I'd say, the different ways I look at it.
I would add one thing. You talk about delegate. I would add empower. If you have a team or you have other vendors that you work with, help them to understand your thought processes, your systems, and give them the tools, resources, and information that they need so that they can make good decisions and know how to identify emergencies and handle those emergencies, not necessarily having to bring everything to you. So, for example, if say that the sprinkler head breaks here in the office.
Had it happen.
And the
what
team,
everywhere.
The team knows where the water pump, the
shutoff valve, you mean?
Shutoff valve, that's it.
That's what I'm here for.
That's why I keep you around.
Assist.
Thank you.
Assist.
So
Assist.
if the team knows that the sprinkler head is likely to go off, they know where the turnoff valve is. If they see that there's water coming out from under the door and realize it's cold and the sprinkler head froze, they don't need to call me to ask me to come and turn off the water valve. They call me after the problem is solved. That's what happens when you empower people.
Right. Shout out to the team on both sides of the river, on JSB and at the soapbox. Things happen. They do it. They take care of it. And then I get an update. And they say, listen, Cope, this is what happened. Johnson, this is what happened. This is what I did. And this is what the current status is. And 9 times out of 10, I'm like, cool. Like, because to me, listen, everything is manageable. Mm-hmm. The question is, how much tolerance, how much patience, and how much are you willing to put into it to correct it?
Right. I think that we're very fortunate here to have a lot of team members with an entrepreneurial spirit where they look at their responsibilities as if they own those things and as if their departments or their sections are its own business within our respective businesses.
Goes back to what I said 100 times. Hire good people. You don't have to manage them. You just give them directions, instructions, and lead them and give them the vision. Obviously, you're supposed to be in the trenches with, you just don't be like, here, go do this and disappear and go like sip a drink somewhere, like in those Instagram and social media posts where they're on the beach building a 10-figure business with sandals and flip-flops on. I'm just like, what the
You haven't
that?
Figured out how to make those
I don't want
figures
to do
off
that.
of flip-flops.
I don't want to do that. So it does not appeal to me. Because for me, sitting on a beach, drinking some drink, and my team is in the grind doing it, it will never appeal to me. Because I'm a practitioner. I want to be there. I want to be in the middle. I want to understand the entry. Like, why do we use these type of XLR cables? Why did Espinosa just say, bring me the one with low noise versus the regular one? I want to understand those things. I don't need to be like some savant of audio, but I want to understand the basics. So me sitting on the beach with a laptop and a cell phone talking about, hey, everybody, look, I made whatever, 3, 2. I made 5 figures today from the beach. Like, respect. If that's your business, enjoy it. And I'm telling you, I don't know how long that it's going to last, because you're just sitting on a beach with a laptop and doing that. Might work now, but what's going to happen 10, 5, 15, 20 years from now? That don't sound like it's something too lasting to me. I don't see a lot of what are most of the businesses in the S&P 500, the top ones that make up the majority of the income for it. I don't see their CEOs and their people sitting on the beach talking about this is the way to make a gajillion dollar income. Get the
Sounds like you're salty.
I'm
I'll
not
say
salty.
this.
I'm just speaking like people need to take off the rose-colored glasses, don't turn the filters off. You know, on Instagram when you can swipe on the stories to put them, turn the filters off and go to normal and look at things for what they are. Because the only person making money on that thing you're clicking on that says make 6 figures, I don't know, a month or 5 figures a month while you're sitting in your house is the person selling it to you. Because if it was that easy and it worked, everybody would be doing it. And I mean everybody.
Well, I'll say this. The part that perplexes me that I don't understand is so frequently we come across people, especially people who are looking for jobs or say they're looking for jobs, and they say, oh, I left my last company because I couldn't grow. I want more responsibility.
They could just go online and do one of those things and make like 6 figures a month.
No, it's not even that. What it is, though, is that when put in challenging situations, when they face problems, or even yet when they face what could be seen as emergencies, they default into
cap out mode. Right. And part of it is, which we talked about, I ranted about earlier about the snow in New York City and how things have gotten so different. Soft.
Well, this is the anti-rant.
Are people falling into this lull or this mentality because they're being spoon-fed so much stuff, right? And the pandemic, don't get me wrong, it's horrible. There's things out there. There needs to be assistance for people. There needs to be programs to help people because there's a lot of things going on. But I would love to see someone run a study on how many people are not going back to work because they're saying, hey, I can get this from the government or I can get this from the city or state and just stay home. How many people have you talked to that have said to you, hey, my people won't come back to work because they're just going to stay home and collect whatever benefit they can versus go to work? And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm just like, if you become dependent on something, it takes the drive out of you. It takes the motivation out of you. So then when things do get slightly challenging, it goes back to your point, it's easy for someone to tap out because they're like, I'm used to doing that. I'll go back to that.
So this is the opportunity alert. If you are currently employed for someone else, thinking about starting your own business, thinking about stepping out, the way that you create opportunities for business and to get paid is by managing emergencies. If you can demonstrate to your employer, to a potential client, or to anyone that you have the skills and capabilities to deal well and address gaps when there's an emergency situation, that's how you can make the jump into having a full-fledged business. You look at, again, we hear people talk about, and I've said it before, never let a good crisis go to waste. Like, there have been so many opportunities for people to fill gaps that even in what's a recession as a result of COVID, there are people that are making a lot of money. And the bigger the problem you solve, the greater the emergency you manage, the more money you're likely to make.
First of all, we need like the Funk Master Flex bomb explosion effects in the podcast for what you said. Because I really don't think people grasp what you just said. You are working somewhere. And we've talked about when you work for someone, you should be giving it your all because at the end of the day, you're building your brand, whether you like it or not. But there's a crisis. There's an opportunity for you to take on that responsibility and show to your team or whomever you report to indirectly or directly that you're the go-to person to make things easier for them. Because when an emergency comes up, if you can jump in and help solve that problem or deal with that crisis, your manager, your boss, the owner, whoever, that's something they don't have to deal with. They're just like, what's the update, Bob? And you're like, this is how we solved it, blah, 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 blah. Here, just sign here, and it only cost us, 3% more for me to fix this problem than it normally does. Great job, Bob. And then when something comes up later on, they're going to be like, why can't Bob be a good fit for this new position that's in charge of X, Y, and Z? But the other piece of it is, as an owner or as an operator, someone who wants to get into business, if you're not looking for the problems to solve,
yes,
like, first of all, we're running out of time, so I'm going to make this short. I almost love when the team something up, right? And not to say I want them to purposely mess something up for the client, but it gives you the opportunity to shine to the client to show how much you care. When something goes wrong with the soapbox, there's a late delivery, something like, oh, you could easily give somebody a coupon code, a discount. We pick up the phone, we call them, they get an email, and they're like, wow, 2-3 different people talk to me like, you guys really care. That is your opportunity to shine. Granted, yes, something did go wrong, but it's such a moment to make up to them, to show them how, your team really cares. Use that, man, I could talk about that for a minute.
Out that during the pandemic, I've gotten more calls for people to asking me to lend my voice to help them identify situations, solutions to emergencies and problems. Guess I didn't do that fast enough.
I guess that means we need to get off the air.
And so I now have access to much larger networks.
Is that the emergency bell?
I have a much stronger voice, and I'm considered more of a thought leader because people have seen how I've demonstrated.
So you're like an influencer now. Holy smokes!
I don't know if I say it. The folks that we talking to, they're not looking for influencers. They're looking for results.
Right.
So, what results are you going to bring to the table? I have a quick quote. One of the tests of leadership is the ability to recognize a problem before it becomes an emergency. That comes from Arnold H. Glassow.
Right.
What emergencies are you identifying today? How can you solve them? And then how can you monetize your solution?
So is there any real emergencies? Because if you've been in business, you're a practitioner, you've been doing it for a while, you've documented, you built your team. These are things that happen. Now, there's a natural disaster, some things like that. That's a freaking emergency, right? You might have a contingency plan for it. And it says, if this happens, here's the rally point, we evacuate the building, we shelter in place, whatever the case might be. But these things that happen in your business over time, they're not emergencies. Those are the challenges that come up on a regular day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, yearly thing that you should have a plan for, that when they arise, your team knows what to do to execute them. So you could keep the machine running, keep servicing your clients, and at the end of the day, you could keep building your business and not get stalled by these bumps in the road.
That there was a word, folks. On that note, thanks for stopping by Commerce and Chill. Hope to see you on a future episode. I am Jessica Johnson Coe.
I'm Waleed.
Like
the news people do this at the end of the thing.